Hey class, I'm going to jump right into week 9 drawing assignment. We are going to be creating a set of drawings for the same house that we did in AutoCAD, only this time we're going to be using Revit. So just like last week, actually a lot of the things we're going to be doing are like our last assignment with that very simple house, only we're going to go much further in depth. So this week we're going to start with the architectural template again in Revit, and this will be the last time that we open this template file. From here on out, for the rest of the semester, we're going to work in this Revit file. So if you remember from last week, what it does is it dumps you into view level 1, the view of level 1, as you can see here in the project browser. Again, I'll note that I take my properties palette and place it over on the right hand side of my window so that I get more real estate for all of my options. Just like last week, we are going to start by drawing the walls. So I'm going to take a look at my final deliverable for the first floor, and I'll note again that we will be drawing this clockwise. So I tend to start in the upper left hand corner and draw my walls clockwise. That way the exterior side of the wall faces the exterior side of the building. And again, I will point out what I call the Revit creation pattern, which is first we need to know what we're going to draw. That's a wall in this case. We're going to go to the architecture tab because that's where the wall exists. We're going to click on the command for wall. Then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to check our type. Now last week we used this generic 8-inch wall. This week we are going to be creating a new type. We want a wall, a residential wall that is a 2x6 wood stud construction with an inch of insulation, continuous insulation on the exterior with wood siding. So what we want to do is find a wall type in here in the existing families, or types I should say, that matches what we want to build the best. So if we find an exterior wall, and this is ephes on metal stud, so we're going to choose that one first. And then what we're going to do, because that is not what we want to build, but what we want doesn't exist in here, so we've chosen the closest thing, basically an exterior wall using metal studs. We're going to click the edit type button, and we are going to edit this wall type to match what we want. So what we want to do is to edit the wall type, you always have to edit the structure. So we're going to click that button, edit the structure, and I like clicking the preview button to see what this thing looks like in plan view. And you can actually change that down here. You can see it as a plan or a section. And we are going to look through all the choices, or sorry, all the layers, I should say, of this wall. And it starts at the beginning, or sorry, the bottom is the interior, 1/2 inch gypsum wallboard, that's what we want. Has a vapor retarder, that's fine. That doesn't take up any space, so we can leave that. Our structure core is a 6-inch metal stud. The first thing we want to do is change that to be 5.5 inches. And we want to change that to be a wood stud. Now this is simply the material. So I typically use a material. I click that ellipsis button, it opens our material browser, and I know Revit uses what's called softwood lumber for any sort of 2x or dimensional lumber. So we're going to use that. And that's simply just a material. You can see that the stud layer in here has changed to this sort of yellowish layer. Our exterior sheathing outside of our structure, or outside of our core I should say, is fine. That's plywood sheathing. We are going to change this to be 7/16, which is zip system. We're using 7/16 zip on this house. The air infiltration barrier, that is basically your house wrap that has no thickness. we do not have an airspace in our wall, but we do have two more layers. We have our insulation, our continuous insulation, and our siding. So we don't need to add or delete any layers, but this layer here is not air, it's going to be insulation. So it is a thermal / air layer, but we are going to change the air to if you type, what I've been doing is typing in the search box here. I typed rigid. There's a rigid insulation. That looks correct. We're going to use that. Only ours is 1 inch. Now you can see that the thickness of this wall is, the total thickness up here is 10 7/16. We want this to be 8.5 like we had for the AutoCAD drawing. So the last thing that we need to do is our exterior siding. So given what all of these dimensions are and what this dimension is, and this is 3 inches, if we do the math, this thickness should be 1 1/16 of an inch. And I don't know why I put that number in there. Let me do that again. 1 1/16 inch. There we go. And now you can see up here in my total thickness, I have 8.5 inches. Now that's still, the material is EIFS exterior insulation. I am going to change that, and I'm going to look for siding, but I'm pretty sure there isn't one in here. So what I am going to do is I'm going to create a new material. So that is down here. You see this little plus arrow? It creates a new material. We're going to do that. We're going to say create new material. It creates a default material. We're going to right click and rename it to 6-inch siding. Actually, I'm going to say wood siding. And for the appearance, let's switch to the appearance. Actually, it's not, sorry, it's the graphics tab. For the surface pattern, we are going to change this to, let me jump back there. Again, I'm going to the foreground of the surface pattern. I'm clicking the pattern box. It brings this up. Now I want this to be my model pattern so that it shows up in all views. And I'm going to click 6-inch parallel so that it adds a 6-inch parallel line surface in elevation, basically. So I can hit OK. And now I have 6-inch wood siding. So I'm going to hit OK here. So now I've edited my structure of my wall to be exactly what I want it to be by adding new materials and choosing default materials that exist already and getting all my thicknesses correct. I can hit OK. Now I do want to rename this. I should have started out by duplicating this. I forgot to do that. Now I haven't placed anything in my drawing, so there's no trouble with renaming this. I'm going to call it exterior wood siding I'm blanking here for a second. Give me a second. Sorry about that. This is going to be called exterior wood siding continuous insulation. We're going to make that an abbreviation to make this a little bit shorter, on 2x6 wood stud. So we try to be as complete and descriptive as we can about a type so that we know exactly what's in it. So now we're going to hit OK. And that is the wall type that we are going to use for all of our exterior walls. Now, the next part of my Revit creation method is always to check my constraints. We want, as always, our exterior walls to be finished face exterior. Our base constraint is level 1 with the base offset is 0. Our top constraint, as I noted last week, I always like to make sure that my top is connected to something, so I'm just going to connect it to level 2 with 0 offset. I'm going to apply that. I'm going to come up to my draw menu, and I see that I'm going to be drawing line. That's exactly what I want. Come down to my options, check that all of this is correct, chain, offset, and finally I can start drawing my walls. So I always do it in plan in between these icons here, so I'm going to start right here. My first section of wall is 3'4". I'm going to go up 2 feet. These are just my exterior dimensions I'm reading right off my final deliverable. 22 feet 2. Go down 4'6". Go over 10'8". So on and so forth. Now some of these I don't have to type in the dimensions because I'm just grabbing inferences off of the other walls. That's 3'4" and 19'3", and that checks out. So there are my walls. And finally, the last part of my Revit creation method, I like to go to my default 3D view to see that I did create what I expected, walls that go up to the second floor. You can also see in my 3D view that those walls do indeed have that 6-inch line pattern for the siding in this view. Now, just like last week, I don't want to see these levels, so I'm going to right-click, hide in view by category, and those go away. Don't forget to save your drawing. I should say save your model. This is not a drawing anymore, it's a full model. So let's go back to level 1. The next thing that we're going to do, just like last week, is create the floor. Only this week we are going to pay more attention to exactly where the floor edge is. And to do that, we're going to change 2 things. The first thing that we're going to do is come down to our view control bar and set our scale to 3/16 of an inch equals a foot. That is our printed scale. That way we're going to be looking at annotative things to the correct scale. The second thing we're going to do is right next to that, we are going to change our detail level from coarse to medium. And you can see what that does. It adds the level of detail in our walls of all those things that we just set up in our wall type. So you can see the exterior siding, the continuous insulation, the sheathing, the stud, and the gypsum wallboard. So we're going to jump right into our Revit creation method for our floor. So we click floor, we check our type. Now we want a wood joist 12-inch wood finish. So the closest thing that we have is a wood joist 10-inch wood finish. We're going to click that, edit the type because it's not what we want exactly, edit the structure, and we are going to, we've got a wood floor, 3/4 inch finished floor of oak flooring, that's fine. Plywood sheathing, 3/4 inch, so that's our subfloor. Our structure is 9 1/4, so that needs to be 11 1/4. For a 2x12. So we hit OK. We rename this. Now again, I could duplicate this, but again, I know I haven't used anything in this file yet. So I hit OK. Hit OK again, and now I'm ready to create the floor. Now, I placed the detail level, or I changed the detail level to see this because what I want to do is my offset should be 0. Actually, let me come back up to my drawing tools. I'm going to use the pick wall tool, and I'm going to check that I have 0 offset, and I want to make sure I check the extend into wall to core. And what I do is when I hover over the wall, I click on the exterior face or towards the exterior face, and that picks up that you can see the pink line aligns with the face of my stud. And I'm just going to go around these walls, picking the exterior face of the stud, and it's going to place the edge of my floor at that line. And now I've got a continuous line. Hit the green check mark button, and there's my floor.